We ready? Okay. We're online? All right. Shabbat. Shalom, everybody. It's not Shabbat yet. This is YSC. This is Yeshua's Sabbath Church. YSC Wednesday. And it is, yay, it's February the 27th. So, this message today is actually, this will be the first message of the restoration of the whole house of Israel. And I want to try to do this in around 40 minutes, 45 minutes or so. And we're going to talk about the meaning of restoration. So, let's open with a prayer. How's that sound? Avenu Melkenu, our Father, our King, we praise your set-apart name, Yahweh. We thank you for this time, this message that is good for this time. It is truthfully known that the church has no idea who they are, and that identity crisis is very, very serious, and I want to talk about that. So, if you would bless this message and bless all of the hearers, either today or whenever they watch it. In Yeshua's name, Amen. All righty, part 1, the meaning of restoration. Now, I looked around for some meanings, and restoration means the restoring of something to an earlier condition, or the action of returning something to a former owner, place, or condition, or the process of repairing or renovating something so as to restore it or return it to its original condition. Notice condition, original, earlier. Restoring is making it look like it used to. It does not mean making something totally new from the something that was old. It does not mean to improve something old. That's not restore, that's customizing. It does not mean to make the old thing into a customized version of itself. To restore something, there must have been a something that existed that was broken or deteriorated so much that it doesn't look like the original, or it barely looks like the original, or it doesn't even exist hardly anymore before we can restore it. That's really simplified. But if there was no whole house of Israel, you can't restore it to something that didn't exist. And you can't turn a nothing into something and call it restoration. I'm going to use a for instance. I wrote a paper on this. Someone found a 1957 Chevrolet Bel Air in some old barn. The person buys this piece of junk because it is his heart's desire to have a showroom-looking 1957 Chevrolet Bel Air. He wants to restore it. Now get this. He wants to restore it to the factory condition. Like what in 1957 you walk into the Chevy showroom and there's one sitting on the floor. That's what he wanted. This is what he found. This piece of junk. Everything imaginable was wrong with it. But he found it, he was happy to buy it, he picked it up, and he was going to take it and fix it up. The new owner of that old piece of junk will need to have the original manufacturer's instructions and specifications. Manufacturer's instructions and specifications, that'll come up later. Those original documents will tell him exactly how to restore the car. What was it? Chilton? Remember those? You could buy a book on a 1957 Chevrolet and it told you absolutely everything about it. Yep. All of the stuff was, every tiny specification was in there. Now, he could just clean the thing up and make it into a custom car. He could use some of the original parts, not bother buying all that stuff or finding all that stuff that's broke or missing, and he could put all that thing together, but it would not be restoration. It would be a custom car. This is the original condition of a 1957 Chevrolet Bel Air, two-door. That's what he wanted. Maybe not quite that color. The one I always have liked, was the red and the white. Or this is not a restoration. Now, it's a cool car, I'll tell you for a fact. He might not even have the original engine in the thing. It's a custom. It's a hot rod. It's probably well, no, maybe it's not race ready, but it can be easily made race ready. Understand this, true restoration of Israel must be to the original manufacturer's instructions and specifications. It has to be to the original scriptural condition. Anything less is an abomination to Yahweh. Anything less is not restoration. Anything less than that is something else. All right. What is Israel? It's not what you think. Most of us that have been in the church for any length of time have been told all kinds of things about Israel, and I intend to clarify that. It is not the land in the Middle East that we call Israel. It was formed in 1948. It is not the present-day Jews. And it is not the present-day church. But you will be told that more times than you can count. The Jews will claim, we are Israel. We have absorbed all of the tribes and we're it. The church, of course, will say, nope, God rejected those people. He didn't want anything to do with them. We are the new Israel. And yes, the land in the Middle East is called Israel, but that's not what I'm talking about. Israel was and is and forever will be a people. It is a large group of people consisting of, we'll get to that. It started with this guy, Abraham. Now, there were a lot of people before that Yahweh was involved with, but the beginning of Israel is Abraham. Yahweh makes a blood covenant. Now, we've had a message on blood covenant. Maybe we'll have to do another one someday down the road. But a blood covenant is special. It is a legal kind of a covenant. Yahweh makes a blood covenant with Abraham and his descendants. In Genesis 13, 14 through 16, Yahweh promises Abraham the land of Canaan, and that his Zerah, I'm going to use that word a lot, Zerah is a seed, it's his sperma, it's his descendants from his body, and they will dwell in that land. That was promise number one. The covenant of promise, the blood covenant. There's only one promise made to Abraham. Not a bunch of promises, not a whole list of them. Eventually there will be things added to that covenant, but the first initial covenant never changes. The blood covenant says that land belongs to, Yahweh said that land belongs to me. Actually, the whole earth does. I can do what I want. And he gave that piece of land, and it's not just that itty-bitty strip either. It's a big chunk of land. That's his, Abraham's descendants. Abram was declared righteous by Yahweh, by God, by the faith in Yahweh's one promise. That's it. He didn't go to a Bible study. He didn't go to church and go up front and go through all that stuff. He just was declared righteous simply because he believed him. The promise of that land includes a physical increase of his seed. The term physical multiplicity applies. His children would be many. He was promised they would be more than the stars that you can see. And in Genesis 17, Abram is told that this promise will establish him as a father of many nations, or the Hebrew, Hamon Goyim. Genesis 17:4. As for me, look, my covenant, this is Yahweh speaking, my covenant is with you. You shall become a father of many nations. We look at that in the Hebrew, those last two words they'll be on the left, okay? Hebrew's right to left, okay? Those last two words, Hamon Goyim, right there, is found in verse 4 and 5, and it literally means a noisy multitude of Gentile nations. A lot of people. But I've been talking about Israel and not any Gentiles. How do they get in? It's not, the promise wasn't made to the Gentiles. But yet it was. Through Abraham and a process that we're going to look at. All right. Abraham had actually more than one son. But the covenant is made specifically with Yitzhak, Isaac, and only Isaac and his children. Period. Abraham had a son from the slave woman. He also, after his wife died, Sarah died, he had 12 more sons. The promise is not to them. None of them included will become the house of, I'm going to use a term, Jacob Israel. Jacob/Israel, so that we're specific. Jacob Israel will be the 12 tribes. Okay, here's where you find all that stuff. Write this down. The initial promise to Abraham was in Genesis chapter 12. The ratification, that's a repeat of it, is in Genesis chapter 15. The sign of that covenant is found in chapter 17. The ratification of the covenant with Abraham is by blood. In this case, it was a bunch of animals that were cut into pieces and laid out, and their blood all got pooled up together. And then Abraham and the other party were supposed to walk through the blood. That's what kind of blood covenant it was. However, as you go back and look in Genesis 15, Abraham was asleep, and Yahweh himself walked through the blood. There's a good reason for this. There's no way in the world Abraham could have kept that covenant, or his side of the covenant. Impossible. But Yahweh says, I will keep this covenant. And it will never be broken. Not never. Period. It didn't someday disappear. Oh, now we got new people, we'll let them have it. It was forever. Now the covenant sign is also by blood, and that's circumcision. You might notice that the son of the slave woman was not circumcised at the 8th day. Isaac was. So he possessed the sign of that covenant. And, so that it's to be clearly understood, Isaac did not obey the law and have himself circumcised. His father did. That commandment for that circumcision is to the father. It can't be to the kid because the kid's 8 days old. You know, he's got actually two things on his mind, sleeping and eating. That's it. So he doesn't know or understand this kind of a thing. Now, this covenant with Abraham is the first blood covenant. Yes, Yahweh did kill some animals, take their skins to cover Adam and Chava, Adam and Eve. That's not that kind of a blood covenant. Now, this covenant is also referred to as the covenant of promise. A promise is made for the land that will become the land of Israel and for the multiplicity of people. By the way, the covenant made with Abraham is not a universal covenant. It does not apply to everyone on the face of the earth. Not then and not now. It was made with one man and his descendants, or his seed, his zerah. Now, there is a limited number of descendants for this covenant, even though the number is real big, like countless. It's not infinite. It's so many. I will. Now, those people that are outside of Abraham's seed, his zerah, his physical descendants, are not included in this covenant. There is a way that they can adopt in. We'll talk about that as this message progresses. But they are not included. All other biblical covenants are based on this one. Now, the covenant passes from Abraham to Isaac. The blood covenant made with Abraham passes to his only son, Isaac, and we see that in Genesis 17:22. But my covenant I established with Yitzhak, with Isaac. Isaac has two sons, Esau and Jacob. Jacob I loved, Esau I hated. That's what Yahweh said. Why? Jacob accepted the birthright. He wanted the birthright. Esau rejected the birthright and just says, okay, you can have it. Give me a bowl of that red chili stuff you got there, red bean soup. Esau hated his birthright. Isaac eventually blesses Jacob. It's actually the younger son. And he prophesied that the promise that Yahweh gave Abraham and Isaac himself would not be bestowed, or would now be bestowed on Jacob and not Esau. And it says so in Genesis 28. And El Shaddai bless you and make you fruitful and increase you, and you shall become an assembly of peoples. Yahweh is promising again the same physical seed, multiplicity, to Abraham, to Isaac, to Jacob. Again, assembly of people. Isaac prophesied that Jacob's zerah, his seed, would be blessed and become Kahilat Goyim, or an assembly of people. Now, we talked a little bit about, did we have that? I don't think we had that message. Oh, I didn't give that one yet. Okay, the church, the word church in the New Testament is ecclesia or ecclesia. I don't remember how it's supposed to be pronounced. I think ecclesia, ecclesia is the Hebrew kahilat. kahal, and it means assembly in both cases. The word ecclesia, right? Ecclesia is not the building. You can go to anywhere you want and assemble anywhere you want, and that is the so-called church, or the ecclesia, or the kahila. It's an assembly of people. It's a meeting of people. And Isaac would be blessed and become this massive, gigantic, enormous assembly of people. So I don't want to go into, I know if you want to go online, you can find out all the stuff about the word church, you can stomach it. There's all kinds of things, and quite frankly, I don't know if half that stuff's true. Biblically, the word church, if you find it in the scriptures, it really means the assembly of people, not the building or not anything else. And it certainly doesn't mean the church corporate. The church corporate is this massive thing. It's a business. It's an organization. There's some things going on in the background back there. So a kahilat goyim is an assembly of nations, assembly of peoples. It's an assembly of goyim. Goy means nation. Goyim means nations. It means Gentiles. Gentiles is used in a negative connotation much in the scriptures, but that does not say that everyone that is a Gentile is excluded. There is a process to come into and become non-Gentile. And we're going to get into that, I'm sure of it. Must be, because it's on the slides here someplace. Now, Yahweh's looking at the promise he made to Abraham, and he was going to, from Abraham's seed, fill the entire earth with descendants of Abraham. Wait a minute. Abraham had one kid. Jacob, or Isaac had two kids. Jacob had 12. Yeah, that's kind of an exponential number if you want to look at it, but that's a lot to be said, that the number of children is going to be countless. Abraham had one kid. Isaac had two. This looks kind of hopeless. How are you going to manage such a thing? Isaac and then his son Jacob will create an assembly that will be eventually made up a lot of goyim, of Gentiles. All of the Gentiles of the earth can be a part of that blood covenant that Yahweh made with Abraham first, and then with Isaac, and then with Jacob. Everybody can be. You don't have to be a blood-born relative of Jacob, physical. You can be adopted. And the cool thing is, in that understanding, in the biblical understanding of adoption, it is exactly like if you were born of the man. I'm getting ahead, but when Jacob took Joseph's two kids, Ephraim and Manasseh, and he said, I adopt you, they were his blood children. But they were all together under all the rules that he had set up and everything. Once you become adopted into, you are now subject to all that family does. To be explained in more greater detail later. The Gentiles of the earth, of the world, must enter the kingdom of Yahweh through the blood covenant made with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and there is no other way. You can't break in, dig a hole through the side. By the way, he allows for walls. Walls have doors. controlled entry and exit. You must enter in through that door. You can't climb up. You can't dig a hole and go under. I believe there's some scripture that says that. You got to go in through that door, and that door is what we see here. That's it, that covenant. In Genesis 28, Yahweh tells Jacob that his seed will be spread out as the dust of the earth and will break forth to the four corners of the globe. And in Genesis 28:14 it says, "And your seed shall be as the dust of the earth, and you shall break forth." We had a message just a while ago where we used the word poretz for break forth. Go back, it was just a couple weeks back. The kingdom of heaven, part 6, the kingdom of heaven suffereth violence. Go back and find that message. It's right there on YouTube, on Yeshua Sabbath Church YouTube, and listen to it. This is what it's talking about. Oops, wrong button. "And your seed shall be as the dust of the earth, and you shall break forth." You shall push hard. You shall shove. You shall bust the rocks out of the way to get into it. You're not just going to stand there passively. Did I mash the rep? Yeah, I did. So that word is poretz. Here's the covenant promise. The covenant promise of physical multiplicity, which is children, must come through Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. This promise does not apply to any of the other sons of Abraham or any of the 12 that came from Esau. Others are making claims on this covenant, and they have no claim. The covenant does not apply to the Gentile church. Most specifically, not to the, 30,000 denominations, whatever it is, and all the other periphery things that want to call themselves Christian. Does not apply to any of them. It does not apply to any other group but the physical sons of Jacob and any others that join that Jacob, Israel, as sojourners, as strangers, as followers who want to be a part of it. The covenant promise does not apply to the other sons of Abraham, such as Islam, forgot the name. It doesn't apply to them through Islam, and it doesn't apply to Esau or any of the Middle Eastern Arabs or other Mediterranean peoples. Esau is Edom. Yes? There are others included in Edomites or as Edom that are not Middle Eastern Arabs, but they are Mediterranean peoples, some from Africa and some from the northern Mediterranean area of that time so long ago. Was that too short? It was 28 minutes. Was good? This is the start of where we're headed for. Jacob had 12 sons. Those sons and their physical descendants are Jacob/Israel. The nation, the peoples of Jacob/Israel. Jews want to tell you, nope, we've absorbed everybody else. This can't be. This isn't, and we'll talk about that. And the church just want to say, well, they're all gone. We're it. That doesn't work either. You might notice that they went to a place called Egypt, those 12 sons and their family. And they went from 70 to 72 people into possibly 3 to 5 million in 400 years. Now that's a lot of people, physical seed, and adopted in. And when they left Egypt, they left as a noisy multitude. They left not just the 12 tribes, descendants, physical descendants. but they also left as all of the others that were there that didn't want to hang around Egypt after they got their patoots kicked very badly. So I'll leave that for later. Okay? All right. Shalom. Thank you for listening. We will continue with this. If you have any comments, email them to Yeshua Sabbath Church. Post them on YouTube. And if you have any personal comments, Rabbi Paul at servant2000.org. Be nice. I do not answer back not nice comments. Okay, that's it. We are done for this day. We will see you again next week. Shalom.